Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, good afternoon. The time is 7:04 my time, 1:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have a quorum of members present this afternoon. And the New York City Board of Correction, October 14th, 2025 meeting is now in session. Our first order of business is to vote on the agenda for today's board meeting, which board members have received. Will a board member move for a vote to approve the October 14th, 2025 meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Does any member have edits or comments on the agenda? There being none, all in favor of approving the October 14th, 2025 agenda, say yay.
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 Any objections? Hearing no objection, it is approved. Our second order of business is a vote on the draft minutes for the September 9th, 2025 board meeting, which board members have received. Will a board member move for a vote to approve the September 9th, 2025 board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does any member have any edits or comments on the minutes? All in favor of approving the September 9th, 2025 board meeting minutes, say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, they are approved and duly ratified. We will now hear pre-recorded anonymous public comment from people in custody. There are 9 comments to be heard at this time.
Closed captioning is provided for viewer convenience. However, the accuracy of machine-generated captions may vary based on audio quality and speaker cadence. The Board of Correction does not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the captions. To ensure the safety and protection of individuals using the people in custody comment line, names and inmate numbers have been withheld.
Hello, yes, my name is calling from Golden Singer Center. My booking case, my tablet is broken during alleged altercation that occurred on August 6th. And I've been trying to run down everybody I can possibly to get my tablet back. I need an incident report written. No one has wrote an incident report. Also, that same day, an officer opened up my cell door, allowed incarcerated individuals to take all of my belongings. Please, somebody can contact me back. I would gladly appreciate it. I am now at 5 South A. And once again, thank you.
The caller has hung up.
How you doing? Good afternoon. My name is, and I was given this number by my fiance to call you guys and tell you what happened on August 17th with correctional. So I was sprayed in my cell for no reason and used excessive force. The thing about it was that we have two in the 6th lower south in R&DC. There are two open shower heads that expels 190-degree water 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week. The shower never turns off, and it's expelling 190-degree water since last year, and it never turns off. So in August, it makes the temperature inside of the dormitory even hotter. So we before the 9 o'clock lock-in, I approached because we didn't have a B officer. We only had an A officer. We didn't have a B officer in 6 Lower South in over a week. So we were policing ourselves. So 9 o'clock came and we just had a thunderstorm on August 17th, and it made the humidity level rise even higher in 6 Lower South. Now in 6 Main South, the slots was open and they have air conditioning. 6 Upper South, the slots was open and they have air conditioning. In 6 Lower South, our slots was closed and there's no air condition, no air condition whatsoever. So before 9 o'clock lock-in, I approached the A officer, which was off at the time, informing her that, we was not refusing to lock in, but if we can have somebody come and open the slots because the cells were unbearable for us to lock into. We were sweating and we wouldn't be able to go to sleep. He said, okay, for us to lock in, she gave us a direct order for us to go inside of the day room so she can call security and security can open up the slot for us. So she called security and told security to open up the slots, but I had an ongoing situation with the captain, which this is targeting and retaliation because of so. So when it came into 6 Lower South, we would explain to when we speak to him and officer the condition. It was so hot down there that officer started to perspirate immediately. I mean, sweat was just dripping off his head. He called, so Mr. You don't have to say anything else. We called the area supervisor so they can feel the conditions of it here so we can open the slot. So go stand back in front of your cell and wait for the captain.
Hello, my name is Booking Case. Earlier, my girlfriend sent her email is. I talked to her today. She told me to call this number because somebody had to ask me certain questions. But this is about my rights being violated, inmate by the correction officer, and I don't have the full information at hand. But I was violated. My turban was violated, thrown in the garbage. They told me that was my religion no more. They also jumped me while I was in handcuffs, which was a violation, as well as forcibly put me on the gurney when my knee was swollen. I finally took an x-ray today. I'm waiting on the results, but they denied me meal, lunch, and dinner. This was on the 26th. They denied me that on intake. Cruel and unusual punishment. They also made my classification go up illegally by writing me a ticket from for being disruptive and a whole bunch of other charges, and just illegally called the classifications to have my classification go up 7 points. I never had a hearing or nothing. I just received a ticket 2 days ago. If you guys could contact and tell her a number that I can call you guys on, that would be great. I was told I will be asked questions on this phone number, but this is just a voicemail. So to whomever is concerned, I will really appreciate it if you get back to me. And please enjoy the rest of your day.
My name. So booking case number is RNDC 5 Upper North, and this message is to inform the Board of Corrections about the misconduct and corruption that has been consistent and persistent by correctional officers that represent the Department of Corrections on Rikers Island. I've been experiencing acts of retaliation for my 311 complaints. All of a sudden, this man has previously sexually harassed me, and I previously had prior allegations against this officer. Yesterday, I was running by investigators, and I told them that this officer wasn't bothering me anymore. As soon as I did that, this man came in this morning and continued to harass me like he was before, including confiscating my property, which is permissible to me. Force level A was called on me from an officer. And all of this is stemming down for 311 complaints that I've previously made on security staff, as well as I'm being retaliated against and harassed every day, including sexually harassed by all types of staff and captains, including security, ever since I made my 311 complaints, and it will not stop. And the harassment has been consistent and persistent. Yeah, hello, my name is United Numbers. We're located at the EMTC 12 Papa. The reason for me calling is during intake, I was transferred on the Friday, August 8th. I was transferred from the EMTC to the Reach building. And during intake at the Reach building, approximately between 5 to 7 o'clock, he took $100 from me, in which they state that they will give me either a receipt to word my commissary or a receipt stating that the money that was so. It was a total of 100, which is 4 20s and 4 5s. Also, he let the captain, the intake captain knows, and the intake captain said he would give me a receipt, which I never received. I made a complaint with social worker, Mrs. Also made a complaint with Mrs. Social worker, and I also made a complaint with CFO, Mrs. Tom. My information, I said I should do a follow-up. Even when I was leaving, being re-transferred back from the Reach to the EMTC building, I saw Mrs. Let her know. She said she would do a follow-up. Till up to now, I have heard nothing. I filed a grievance form, and still there's no response to that. I wanted to know what is going on with my $100. And I don't feel very good about it. I feel like I've been robbed. I feel like I've been jerked. And also, this happens up my mind because why? I'm an inmate here, and I don't feel like this is that's the right way of going about it.
Hello, this is my booking case. I'm here to report Seal. She planned to send me to another housing area where I would be cut, and she told fellow inmates that she's here for a rape charge. She continues to harass me. Today she told people I can't go to the barbershop and I disrespect her. I never disrespected her. And it's just unusual punishment. He just continues to harass me.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is in case number. I have been a hostage here at Rosenfinger since 2022. Charged with murder and infected on a fraudulent indictment. Charges in Supreme Court before I was indicted. No warrant, no DNA, no facial recognition, no weapon, and to this day, no offer. Court dates spaced out sometimes as long as 7 months apart. And I'm on my third judge. I suffered 2 injuries due to the negligence of the issues here at Rose and Finger that I have grieved more than several times about the same thing. And the grievances go unanswered. It's been 3 months and still no MRI appointment, no results of my lab work for black mold that was in building number 5, no chest x-ray, in spite of the symptoms that I'm having. I'm still in pain. I'm still taking several different medications, and the medical assistance here at Rose and Finger is neglecting to give me services as well. I don't know what else to do. I've spoken to the warden. I've attended inmate council meetings. There's still no program. I still haven't received brochures. The business are being neglected because of the cameras inside of the visiting strip area. I'm unclear of who to communicate this stuff to. I don't know what else to say. I'm hoping that things will get better here at Rose and Singer, but as it stands, I'm in 5 South A. I just was moved from building number 5 where it contained black mold. Building number 5 was condemned. It's been deemed condemned for about a year now, so I don't understand why I was housed there in the first place.
Hello, how you doing? My name is, my booking case number, I'm basically calling regarding because I got a ticket the 17th. I had a fight with a guy on the 17th, and I got a ticket for it, and they never took me to my hearing. They talking about that I refused my hearing, and it's not even on camera that I refused my hearing. So can you please get back to me when you get this message? Thank you. Have a blessed day. I'm in 11 lower 2, EMTC.
Hi, I would like to make a complaint against to harm me and into not feed me and do all types of wickedness to me as far as telling me to stick up. I don't need that type of threat as well as by threatening to take my life as well as my family's. These are officer corrections. These people are trying to harm me and put me in harm's danger, so that way I won't talk about them threatening me and trying to harm me in any way possible. To get and yeah, these people are trying to threaten me. They don't want to serve me or help me by giving me what it is that I need to help myself do better for the day. They just antagonizing me, keep calling my name. They don't want to serve me my food, what I need, and just being oppressed by these officers, and I needed to stop. My name is
Well, thank you to all who left public comments on our dedicated lines for people in custody. I'd like to note that redacted comments have been shared with the Department of Correction. All comments associated with a facility have been assigned to the BOC facility monitor and have either been resolved or are being addressed at this time. So now we'll move on to our executive director updates. So Jasmine, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. First, we share our deepest condolences with the families of department staff who have passed since the board's September meeting. The staff who have passed are retired Captain Mary Nesbitt, retired Officer James Edward Ross, retired Captain Melvin Dudley, retired Captain David Lipscomb, retired Officer Miriam Giddy, retired Officer Lenora Sapp Everett, retired Captain Robert Belfiore, retired Warden James F. Lasser, retired Officer Sharon Bruce, retired Officer Charles M. Jordan, and retired Captain Walter A. Stewart. Regarding the census data, as of October 13th, 2025, there were approximately 7,085 individuals in department custody, and this is approximately 8% higher than the jail population this time last year. Broken down by facility, as of October 13th, in Bellevue Hospital Prison Ward, 66 individuals. Elmhurst Hospital Prison Ward, 8 individuals. EMTC, 1,415. GRVC 943, NIC 285, OBCC 1,568, RESH ESH 137, RESH non-ESH 364, RMSC 468, RNDC 1,085, West Facility 744. And regarding reports, the board issued its second semi-annual monitoring report covering the last 6 months of 2024. The report includes information detailing the number of complaints received during the reporting period, actions taken by the board staff to address and resolve issues in New York City jails, and responses from both DOC and CHS. The monitoring unit focused on identifying clear trends and patterns in the complaints received, as well as identifying areas where systemic issues persist. The report highlights recurring issues observed during the reporting period, such as overcrowding, health and medical concerns, and issues concerning tablets. And the full report can be found on BOC's website. On death reporting, the board has shared a draft report covering in-custody deaths that occurred in February and March of 2025 with DOC and CHS for comment. The final report will be made publicly available prior to the board's November meeting. We also plan to publish a separate report on the deaths that occurred since June 2025 by the end of the year. The board has also shared a draft report on injury response in New York City jails with DOC and CHS for comment. The final report will be made publicly available before the board's November meeting. And that concludes the staff updates.
Thank you, Jasmine. Next, Committee Chair Judge Crozier will provide an update regarding the board's minimum standards review committee.
Thank you.
Judge Crozier.
Thank you. As chair of the board's minimum standards review committee, I'd like to present a resolution for consideration by the board based upon the committee's recent work and recommendations. The committee has carefully examined current policies and practices related to two important areas of care within NYC's correctional facilities: the administration of psychotropic medications and the protocols for tuberculosis screening. Following our review, which has included engagement with CHS and consultation with subject matter experts, the committee has concluded that amendments to the board's minimum standards are necessary to align current procedures with best public health practices. Therefore, today I am introducing a resolution recommending that the board vote to proceed with formal rulemaking to explore amendments to the minimum standards related to both psychotropic medication and tuberculosis screening. This resolution does not enact any changes today. Instead, it authorizes the board to begin the rulemaking process under the City Administrative Procedure Act, which will include additional opportunities for public comment, legal review, and stakeholder engagement. Jasmine, would you please read the resolution?
Yes. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas New York City Charter Section 626E authorizes the board to establish minimum standards for the care, custody, correction, treatment, supervision, and discipline of all persons held or confined under the jurisdiction of the Department of Correction. Whereas pursuant to its charter mandated duty to establish minimum standards, the board established a minimum standards review committee to review the minimum standards and recommend amendments accordingly. And whereas the minimum standards review committee recommends that the board initiate rulemaking to amend sections 2-05B2, Romanet 1 and 2, and 3-04B2, Romanet 5A of Title 40 of the Rules of the City of New York, to codify longstanding variances granted by the board regarding psychotropic medications and tuberculosis screening, and to amend outdated language in the mental health and healthcare minimum standards. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board authorizes board staff to draft proposed rules for the board's consideration and undertake all aspects of rulemaking pursuant to the Citywide Administrative Procedure Act. It is further and finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be posted conspicuously on the board's website.
Judge, is there a motion?
Yes, I would now move that the resolution be approved by the board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Well, I'd like to thank Judge Crucier and the committee for excellent work presenting this forward. I think it's been every 6 months that CHS has been coming before the board to seek variance on this matter. So it's long overdue that we move forward to be with standard. So we will go to a vote now, and I think we will go to a roll call vote. So Vice Chair Skipper.
Approve, yes. Yay.
Okay. And I'll go to Jude Toussaint,
Yay. Yes, yay.
Board Member Pitts,
Approve.
Board Member Stasso,
Approve.
Judge Crucier,
Approve.
and Board Member Felipe.
Approve.
Okay, it looks like I approve a yes vote. And so it's unanimous and the vote has passed for the resolution. We will now go to DOC updates. We will now hear updates from the department on the agenda items regarding the officer rounding policies and oversight agenda item. I want to note that the board is not asking the department to discuss details about open investigations. The board has previously and continuously recommended changes in departmental policy or auditing related to rounding in the past, reports on deaths in custody. The board looks forward to hearing more about the department's efforts in this area while addressing the bulleted issues on the agenda. So is the department ready? And we'll start with the question of officer rounding policies and oversight.
All right. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Joseph Caputo, currently the Acting Assistant Chief of Facility Operations and also the Criminal Justice Bureau. Thank you for allowing me to present today. The department's policies and procedures clearly outline requirements for touring in all housing area types to ensure the security and the well-being of the people in custody. Generally, each housing area must be toured at 30-minute intervals in a staggered pattern. Certain circumstances, such as emergency lock-ins, require tours to occur every 15 minutes. Supervisors are also required to tour the areas. The board has unfettered access to all DOC policies, which prescribe specific timelines and expectations for the uniformed staff touring and supervisory responsibilities. As with all DOC policies, disciplinary action may be taken in the event that staff is found to be in violation of these policies. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, Jasmine, I don't know if the acting assistant chief addressed the specific questions, all of them regarding rounding policies and oversight. Could you go through the bulletized list so that acting assistant chief Caputo can respond?
Yeah, yes, I'll just read through the bullets that are included on the agenda to give a little bit of direction in terms of the discussion. So DOC presentation on current policies and procedures for officer rounding in both mental observation and general population units. Rounding procedures for individuals receiving MO level care in non-MO units, for example, West Facility. Frequency of required rounds in DOC's monitoring mechanisms, identification of units with irregular rounding practices and any corrective action plans in place, procedures for leadership notification and response to issues such as officers leaving their posts, congregating in the control bubble, or sleeping on posts.
All right, so as far as rounding procedures, so general population and also mental health housing areas, the intervals are 30 minutes. There's certain instances, as I stated before, that would require 15 minutes, like an emergency lock-in. So that's the rounding procedures. As far as West Facility is a communicable disease area. There are certain instances where individuals will be placed in that based upon the Office of Security and Intelligence, and that can be voluntary protective custody, court order lockdown, civil commits, different instances where they would be placed there. And the rounding procedures are also the same. They're 30-minute intervals. As far as monitoring mechanisms, so we have something that's called the watch tour system, known as the tour pipe system. This is something that is electronic tracking and monitoring of people doing their tours, correction officers doing their tours, captains doing their tours. And the department takes this in very high regard, and the system is managed at the highest level of the department. So literally from the senior deputy commissioner's office, it's tracked and monitored, and if it's warranted, discipline is issued in a progressive manner. As far as for units that are identified with irregular rounding practices, again, that's something that is monitored at the highest level of the department, which should let you have some insight into the importance that we place upon it. And this encompasses officers leaving their post or congregation in a bubble, because if the rounds are not conducted in staggered intervals of at least 30 minutes, then it will be notified. It'll show up as somebody not making their rounds. So that's how we track and monitor it. Any other questions that was not
Yes.
answered? Okay.
First of all, you have not answered any question. You've given us generalities. You've told us when the rounds occur, when they're supposed to occur. Every 30 minutes and 15 minutes for emergency lock-ins. What you did not answer was the DOC's monitoring mechanism. I believe you called it a watch tour system. I think we need further information on that. What is a watch tour system? How does it work? How does information go from a control bubble to this watch tour system? How does information get there about who rounded and who didn't? We don't have none of the specifics on that. Not finished. You say that this is all handled by the highest level of department, but what exactly does that mean? We asked for procedures, we asked for responses, and you've given us none. And I understand that this information has to be given to you for you to report it back to us. But we don't have none of this information. And I'm really interested in the response to issues as officers leaving their posts, congregating in a control bubble and sleeping on posts. I really like to know more specifics about that. How often does it happen? What is the response the department has issued? Is there a tier level response? Anything of that nature?
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for the question, and I apologize if I didn't answer fully, but now that you've been very specific, I can answer you in detail. So the Watch Tour system is actually a wand that a correction officer has on their person. And when they tour, there's checkpoints around the housing area that they physically click the wand on to show that they toured that area. So it's throughout the housing area. If it's a two-tiered unit, it's throughout the entire unit. So there's certain checkpoints that they have to make, electronically with this wand that register in the computer system that is tracked and monitored. So if you have a unit that doesn't have the required tours done, that is something that gets investigated, and they will literally look at video to see what occurred that they didn't do their tours. And then discipline could be issued in a progressive nature based upon what is observed in the investigation of the unit that wasn't toured properly. So I hope that gives you a little detail into explaining the system itself. And I apologize. I thought that everybody was familiar with the system, so that's why I left it out. As far as congregating in a bubble, or as far as, in the instance that somebody would be less than alert on duty, those things again are tracked and monitored. And I can't speak to specifics, but there is discipline that is issued in those instances. Yes.
Why can't you speak to specifics? I'm not asking for individual officer names or incidents. I'm just asking, like, what is the response?
So that
You
is,
said they're disciplined. How are they disciplined? What level of
so
discipline?
dependent upon the incident itself, it could be a memorandum of complaint, which is formal charges, or it can be a command discipline, which is handled at the command level.
Let me just stop this for a second. Just for clarification, Jasmine, or the department, my understanding that a presentation was to be offered to this board today on rounding policies and oversight. Am I to be clear that what you're offering, acting assistant chief computer, is the presentation?
Jim Conrad, General Counsel. That's correct. I mean, we did get the agenda and it says presentation, but that's not something that we've had conversations and emails back and forth and talked about doing this, in separate forums. But, again, as the chief articulated, this is kind of the policies, procedures. They've not changed. They're consistent. We talked about the WAN procedure. So yeah, this is what we have. It's not much beyond what Chief Caputo spoke about.
Okay, so any questions so far from other board members or Vice Chair Skip?
No.
Okay, Board Member Stossel, we'll go to. If you need to come back, Vice Chair Skip, we can come back to you.
I'm good. Thank you, Chair Sampson.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Assistant Chief Caputo. So this is the first time hearing about the wand system. It's really helpful to get the information about it. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. The video review is in real time or it's retroactive?
It's retroactive.
And how often is it getting, can you talk a little bit about in a little bit more detail about how the review happens and whether there's aggregate data that gets produced from it about particular buildings or housing areas where there are issues with this? I guess what I'm getting at is it seems pretty clear in a couple of the issues that have been going on that there are lapses in this, and that it might be an area for more focused review and research and corrective action planning. So I'm just curious about whether that is already being done, and whether that's something that we might be able to speak more about outside of the scope of this meeting.
So I can answer certain aspects of what you're saying. It can't be in full real time, because the way that the Tor wands work is that they have to be collected and then downloaded in order for the data to be inputted. So it can't be in real time, because that's just not how the system works. As far as tracking and monitoring, like I said, it's done through the office, the Senior Deputy Commissioner's office, and they do it daily with the data that they have uploaded. And then it's a very tedious process. It has to be analyzed into areas that are not toured, and then they have to review the video to see what was occurring that it wasn't, what's the lapse, if anything, like Board Member Skipper said, an officer off post, and then discipline would be affected.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, you have like
F-
three of them.
Fel- Felipe, and then we'll go to board member
Pitts,
Pitts. Yep,
and then me.
and then back to you. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. So the one system, which system does you guys use at Rikers? Which one? What is the name of the system that you're using for the ones?
Yeah, I believe it's called the Watch Tour system or the Tour
There's a
One
couple
system.
I know there's a couple of companies, and you have this available in all the Rikers jails,
All cell units have this system.
all of them,
Cell units, yes, not dormitories.
and so the data, I know it goes to a central position and place. So those reports, we could get copies of those reports? I mean, another electronic.
Yes.
Okay. So in every one of our jails in New York City, we have that capacity, and you have reports of people checking on the units. Thank you.
Board member Pitts.
Yeah, Chief, is there a unit that watches the videos in real time?
No, so there is not a unit that watches it in real time, because again, that data has to be downloaded. So it's not, there's a video monitoring unit, VRU, that watches certain aspects of the island itself in real time, but it's not pertaining to the Tour One, so it's a whole separate initiative.
But the housing area units, there's no unit that watches that watches the videos of the housing areas in real time.
So there
Like
is.
CCC, they don't
Yeah,
do
so
that.
there is a whole separate entity within the department that watches the units in real time, but there's a lot of units.
Right.
But they do monitor units and at times definitely catch things that are reported in real time. But
Okay.
it's separate from this initiative, from the Tour One.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, what is the real-time delay? I know you've said that the information is collected by the wands. It's then downloaded and then I guess it's built into a report form. What is the time delay? So basically, if something happened on Monday, whenever you download that information, when is a report generated and looked at?
So it's actually immediate. The second that is downloaded, the report is generated. They download usually at 5 a.m. So it's done daily.
Every morning for
Every
the
morning.
day before,
Yes.
I'm assuming. Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
I just had one point of clarification. You said the rounding is 30 minutes on the MO units also. I was under the impression that the policy was that those units were rounded on every 15 minutes, the PACE and the MO units.
No, the PACE and the MO units, just like regular general population units, are at 30-minute intervals. There's certain instances that would require enhanced touring of those units that tie into suicide prevention aides being on post as well, but they are 30-minute intervals.
Even when there are no suicide prevention aides present?
No, that's when it would be 15 minutes in the MO units.
Okay, so the standard when there are no suicide prevention aides present is still 15-minute rounding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, if no further questions in this particular area, Assistant Chief Caputo, I think that,
Chair, Jude has a question.
okay, I'm sorry, Jude. Go ahead, Board Member Jude Toussaint.
That's fine, no problem. Thank you, Assistant Chair. I did have a question regarding the data tracking. So is there a spreadsheet that's kept in regards to logging percentage data per tour?
I would have to follow up with you. I don't have that specific information. Sorry.
So since this is some sort of data collection, I was curious as to if there's percentages that are kept. Once the data is collected, do you have like a spreadsheet or something similar that we could review? So we could track percentages and see if it's, if there's a successful tour. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Toussaint. If there's no other questions in this particular area, I'd like to move on to the staffing and programming in PACE units, program to accelerate clinical effectiveness. And it says DOC presentation on current officer staffing patterns for PACE units, frequency of meeting those staffing benchmarks, feasibility of DOC providing programming support during ongoing officer shortages.
All right, I'm going to be speaking on this as well. Thank you again for the opportunity. Members of the board, as the board is aware, the department cannot speak or discuss specific staffing patterns or benchmarks in a public forum due to security concerns. As a general matter, there are various specialized housing areas, PACE included, that the department prioritizes when assessing staffing levels and redeployments at the beginning of each tour to ensure that they are appropriately staffed. DOC does provide access to all mandated services in the PACE housing areas, but all other services are managed and facilitated by CHS. They are solely responsible for providing clinical services to the populations housed there. DOC and CHS are in regular communication regarding staffing shortfalls or needs that may present itself in PACE units, and they work collaboratively to address any issues expeditiously. To the extent that any additional support is needed in relation to PACE units, we continue to work in partnership with CHS. As you know, the PACE units are the highest level of care that's presented on Rikers Island, and it is something that we do work collaboratively with CHS. We have daily huddles at the beginning of each tour with our partners in CHS. And I was a part of actually the beginning of the PACE units in one of the facilities that I was warden in. And it really is a good thing how we work in conjunction with each other.
Okay, any questions from board members?
Board Member Stasso.
Go ahead, Board Member Stasso.
Thank you. I agree. This works really well when it works well. I think it seems like there have been difficulties with officer shortages. I know you guys are working collaboratively as best you can. I think one thing that I'm curious about is, given that we know that programming, CHS requires sort of certain staffing patterns in order to be able to safely do programming on these units. And so I know historically programming has been exclusively the purview of CHS on PACE units and MO units. And I'm just curious about the department's openness to, given the ongoing officer shortages, the possibility of supplementing with DOC's own programming services, which are robust and do a great job in the general population units. So I'm just curious about that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Francis Torres, First Deputy Commissioner for the department. I certainly wouldn't want to speak on behalf of our partners at CHS, but we do have ongoing conversations with them. And anytime there is a need for any additional programming to be included into the mental observation, PACE or CAPS, that is something that is discussed with CHS. I think that it is only when they bring it to our attention, and I'm excluding the mandated services because mandated services are afforded in any of these units. But when they want additional support, we are quick to look at our own staffing and services and assist any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Torres. Talking about PACE, have we considered again opening like a mental health PACE unit for young adults, particularly thinking about their unique mental health needs?
So I think that I will defer to our partners at CHS. Our conversations are ongoing with them. If they bring it up to our attention, it is something that we will explore with them.
But from your perspective, you know these young adults well, you know the challenges you guys are encountering. Could you benefit from a PACE focused with developmental needs of young
So do
people?
keep in mind that when it comes to emerging adults, if there is a need for them to go into a PACE unit, the exceptions are made and they're actually absorbed in them.
But they're absorbed under the care of an adult.
That's correct. If you
Not an adolescent, emerging adult
not an emerging adult. If you're looking at something that only targets emerging adults, as a primary group, then that is something that we will go and discuss or will need to discuss further with CHS.
We'd love to talk to you guys more.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding staffing and programming and PACE units? Okay, if not, we'll move on to DOC's plan to improve access to recreation at OBCC. And I can go in to the specifics, which is the summary of current recreation access challenges, proposed steps to provide consistent daily recreation in compliance with minimum standards, 1-06 staffing and tracking plan for consistent daily recreation, timeline and benchmarks for improvement.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Fritz Frage, Senior Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Corrections. We appreciate the Board's concerns and strive to uphold the Board's minimum standards. Within the past months, the Department installed new leadership at the facility, including assigning a new warden to oversee the command. Addressing barriers to recreation was a top priority for the new leadership team, and upon their assignment, they have immediately begun to assess staff deployments and other factors that may be impacting the provisions of recreation. Facility leadership has also clearly communicated that the provisions of recreation is a top priority, and a facility-wide memo was issued on September 9th, 2025, that prohibited recreation officers from being shift reduced under any circumstances without approval from the warden or their designee. As a result, the facility has already demonstrated a dramatic increase in the provisions of recreation with fewer interruptions to service. OBCC leadership are actively tracking the provisions of recreation and working to ensure that the solutions that have been implemented thus far will support sustained compliance with minimum standards. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions?
Vice Chair Skip.
Vice Chair Skip?
Once again, it appears that the department has not come with a presentation, but whether just a prepared statement that really doesn't address these bullet points that we ask specific information about. So one thing that I want to suggest that a major barrier to daily rec is the extended lock-ins following frequent TSOs. Past directives and ops orders has required the department to minimize disruption to regular facility ops during these searches. I have 3 questions, specific questions that require specific answers, Mr. Project. What specific steps does the department currently take to minimize disruption? My second question, the 2007 ops order and the 2005 directive includes this a requirement, but it has been removed. Can the board have a reason why it's been removed? And third, does this still remain a priority at OBCC? And how is it being addressed? Even those who are people in custody deserve an hour of air, sunshine, rec, regardless what they're confined for or charged with or found guilty of. They deserve that. We need to give it to them. That's how the rules and regulations and the minimum standards run.
Thank you, Board, for that question. And if you let me elaborate, I can answer that question to you shortly. First, what we've done besides putting new leadership, part of the concern for the reason for shift reducing was during the summertime was based on our vacations and personnel. But since then, we've assigned new leadership. What we've done is they're now allowed to shift reduce or stop recreation anywhere on the island without explicit explanation that goes directly to the DC Walsh's Office of Security and myself to review to ensure that they don't stop recreation by any means. And that's for all minimum standards. There has to be a justification which is emailed to us if they're planning to or attempting to. Since we've implemented that program in September and review, they have called on several occasions to discuss. We found ways to adjust and ensure that recreation has occurred. I can assure you, if you want me to provide information later on, that there's been a drastic increase where all of the personnel, and specifically in OBCC, have had recreations. The only time they've missed it, in a sense, was on, I think, 1 or 2 occasions, or there was a full TSO in the building, which at that time, we cannot get them out to rec. But the other times where recreation was not afforded, we have mitigated those circumstances. We've implemented that policy throughout every single facility, not just OBCC, to ensure that they follow up on the minimum standards. We've also have a policy where the administrative deputy wardens that were assigned to facilities no longer report to the facilities. They report to the deputy commissioner of administration and myself for review to ensure that we're all following the same patterns, and that's not happening. We're not providing rec. So as I said before, we have gone to extreme measures to ensure that we're following up, and DC Walsh and the staff are committed to ensure that all the PICs do get rec. It's important. It's to our benefit. It keeps people safe.
How are these reviews conducted? I'm assuming they're written down somewhere and you have specific points that you look at and decide whether for or against. We like to see those documents. Here is another request the board is making of DOC.
We can provide that information to you. As I stated before, the email does come into and phone calls do come into DC Walsh's office with those requests, if any. There haven't been any. We've strictly, and I'll say it again, strictly advise all the wardens that providing all necessary requirements and programs should be provided. And the only times that they may or may not be provided is during extreme circumstances where we have a TSO or severe manpower shortage. But as of recently, we have been providing rec to all the PICs, except in those circumstances I mentioned.
I just have a follow-up question regarding OBCC in recreation. And you have indicated that in September you implemented new policy or procedures that that goes direct to senior leadership before recreation is not afforded. Just basically, how long has OBCC gone without recreation before that implementation of new policy?
Well, if you're asking for specific numbers on how many times rec was not afforded, I don't have those numbers with you right now, but we can provide that to you. But I can tell you that the numbers in reference to not having rec the past month has grossly decreased. We have been providing rec. And if they were not going to, they would have to report it to us. We would have it up front that we knew they had a reason why they didn't provide it.
Jasmine, if you can lend some light to what those numbers might be on our side, because I know I visited OBCC once and I've had PICs saying they've been out once in a month. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what was the sort of the root cause of not having the recreation. I understand the change, but we have to still understand what the root cause was, and so we know what we're dealing with in the future so that it can be limited in some regard.
I can provide you some information on some of the root causes. As I said before, part of the root causes was one of two things. One, we're talking about July and August, the highest vacation calendar month of the year, where personnel aren't there because they're on vacation and afforded vacation for their families in a sense. So they get shift reduced to cover other areas as far as housing areas. That was one of the concerns that we have, reasons why it was happening. Based on that, that was the concern then. Now we've adjusted to make sure that they are provided. The vacation requests are not as deep and extensive as it was in the summertime, which would mean we will be able to cover a lot more, which we have been doing as of recently. That was one of the concerns for the reason for shift reducing, and management issue when we're talking about personnel and what they shift reduce. At some point in time, people were shifting reducing rec to cover other areas. We've prohibited that. We've shift reduced other areas and adjusted to put them back when we manage them properly. That's the reason why the administrative corridor DWs are currently being forwarded to the Deputy Commissioner of Administration for review to make sure that we're all shift reducing in the same manner, where it's uniform in a sense, to make sure that the programs are afforded to all of the PICs in our custody.
Is part of your presentation a definite number of the amount of time that OBCC has gone out to rec and within, I want to say, call it the last 30 days? Is this part of your presentation, sir?
I don't have exact numbers right now. I can't provide that to you.
So I'm confused as to why you would do a presentation or even respond to what we've asked you to respond to and not include that number. Why would you? I'm through.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Skip. Judge Crisea.
Yes, other than OBCC, what can you give us an update on what steps have been taken to coordinate consistent daily recreation in the RESH, non-RESH, and Rose Singer facilities? Because, you know, we had a problem there in terms of disruptions based upon lack of adequate, you know, facilities and coordinating between the different populations. So where are we on that?
As when this concern came up with OBCC, we ended up looking at the entire island as its totality. So these implementations were not just implemented on OBCC. These implementations were implemented on every single facility and leadership to make sure they follow those standards of insurance that we can provide rec for all of the PICs throughout the whole island. We can give you exact numbers.
If I may, and only because I've been very involved in the RESH Annex and RESH, as well as Rose M. Singer. So I appreciate your question. I would like to share with you that RESH Annex or RESH non-ESH has had a dedicated recreation yard, separate and apart from the main yard, usually assigned to the female population at Rose M. Singer. So the disruption that we had experienced previous months as a result of us having to open up RESH Annex has significantly minimized. In addition to that, our FMRD has gone into all buildings, with the exception of two buildings, Buildings 5 and a newly created recreation yard for Building 7. And they have redone all of those mini recreation yards adjacent to the buildings assigned to our female population to better provide services or rec access to the female population. RESH, as it stands, the regular RESH, still has access to the RESH yard that they have been ever since we transferred the population from GRVC to Rose M. Singer RESH.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions regarding this topic area, board members? Okay, so we'll move to the final BOC update, and that's an update on outposted therapeutic units, a DOC update on the operational status and the opening timeline for completed outposted units, discussion on functionality, staffing, and service integration.
Oh, good afternoon, members of the board. My name is James Boyd. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Strategic Operations at New York City DOC. The department holds regular briefings with Board of Corrections staff and board members to provide progress updates and general information for both the borough-based jails as well as the OTHUs. As the board is aware, 2 briefings were held uh, with both board members and staff in September, where pertinent updates for each project were shared. In addition, DOC has extended an invitation for board members to tour the Bellevue Outposted Therapeutic Unit space at the end of this month. As communicated during our last update to the board, DOC and CHS continue to work through final punch list items, including enhancements to security features and programming of security electronics, as well as other matters of policy, training, and staffing with the State Correctional Commission so that the facility can be commissioned as a jail. While we remain in constant communication with the SCOC, we cannot at this time provide an actual timeline at which the facility will be commissioned, as that is the discretion of SCOC when all of the information has been provided and produced. The North Central Bronx, as well as the Woodhall OTHU sites, remain in the design phase, though we are incorporating lessons learned from the Bellevue OTHU project to expedite those projects. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions, board members?
Board Member Pitts.
Board Member Pitts.
Okay, thank you, DC Boyd. Yeah, do we know for Bellevue, the outpost at Bellevue, how many staff, correction officers will be needed?
Currently, right now, we're tracking for approximately 265 uniform staff. I don't have the actual breakdown with me.
Also, and I know this might be a temporary fix, but based on what I heard earlier in this meeting, there are 285 people in custody at NIC. You may not be able to answer this question now, but how many, I'd like to know at some point, how many of them are bedridden and wheelchair bound? And could we identify a percentage that under those circumstances, that there's a particular percentage that are bedridden and wheelchair bound, staff could be reduced in that facility and sent possibly to one of the hospital outposts, that therapeutic outposts? That's my question.
I mean, it's more, I appreciate it. It's more of an assessment, but I think we'll have to work with CHS to kind of give you some a response to that.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'll have to follow up on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions from other board members? Okay, thank you kindly, and that concludes the department's update.
Vice Chair Skip.
Chair Sampson.
Yes, go ahead, Vice Chair Skip.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to introduce a resolution that the board would like to carry through, if that's okay.
There is a motion to amend the agenda. Any specifics on the motion, Vice Chair Skip?
Yes, hold on a minute. I'm sorry. I have language all over 3 phones. Hold on a minute. Given recent issues with non-responsiveness from DOC to board member and staff inquiries, we would like to amend the agenda to introduce a resolution that highlights these issues of lack of full and prompt responses or lack of responses altogether and demand immediate corrective action.
Okay, there is a motion for a resolution, and Vice Chair Skip, or if that resolution or wording could be presented upon a second of your resolution order. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to amend the agenda for today's meeting to present a resolution regarding, I guess, the department's lack of responsiveness to the board's questions and inquiries. Is that correct, Vice Chair Skip?
Yes.
Okay, so any questions at this time? I'll call for questions.
May I make a statement? I don't want to seem out of turn here. I'm not sure I understand what you're inquiring about.
You're out of turn. So, but thank you.
No, I asked if I could.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion that's been seconded, and there's no questions at this time. So what I would like to do, Vice Chair Skip, if you could read your motion for a vote with respect to the body.
Certainly, Chair Sampson. Resolution regarding the Department of Corrections' failure to adequately respond to board requests. October 14th, 2025, public meeting. Whereas the New York City Board of Correction, BOC or Board, is mandated by the New York City Charter, parentheses, City Charter, to provide independent oversight of the city's correctional facilities to ensure the safety, health, and dignity of all individuals in custody and to promote transparency and accountability in correctional management. Whereas City Charter subsection 626, parentheses, C, parentheses 2, authorize the board to inspect all books, records, documents, and papers of the New York City Department of Correction. And City Charter subsection 626, parentheses, C, parentheses 4, authorizes the board to evaluate the department's performance. Whereas to fulfill its statutory duties, the board requires timely, complete, and good faith cooperation from the department in response to its request for data, documentation, policies, procedures, implementation plans, and other essential information. Whereas the department has on numerous occasions failed to respond in a timely manner to the board's formal and informal requests, and in some instances has provided responses that were partial, unreasonably delayed, or entirely absent. Whereas at the board's September 9th, 2025 meeting, First Deputy Commissioner Francis Torres informed the board that the department would submit written reasoning for rejecting recommendations made by the board's ad hoc committee to review the utilization of the New York City Department of Corrections 6A Work Release Program as requested by Vice Chair Skipper. Whereas the department submitted a response on October 2nd, 2025 that did not delineate the reasons for rejecting the committee's specific recommendations. Rather, the department reiterated what it stated at the September public meeting. The department does not intend to adopt the board's recommendations. Per New York State correction law, the design and implementation of the 6A work release program is solely at the discretion of the commissioner. The 6A work release program is not a conditional release program or population reduction tool, but rather a means of supporting safe, structured rehabilitation and reentry. We remain committed to strengthening the program, incorporating feedback where appropriate, and ensuring it continues to align with the best practices. Whereas on September 30, 2025, the board followed up on requests made prior to and during the September public meeting for the department's long-term plan for consistently providing daily recreation in the Otis Banham Correctional Center, OBCC. The board also requested a copy of a standardized tracking form and facility-wide memo referenced by the department its staffing plan to address access to recreation concerns and specific details about a tracking plan to come into compliance. Yet the board has not received any of the specific information and documentation requested. Whereas on September 19th, 2025, the board requested the department's plan to remedy issues regarding access by counsel and legal staff to persons in custody and in-person visitation in the Rose M. Singer Center Enhanced Supervision Housing, RUSH. Detailed plans and timeline for the revamping and digitalization of the council visitation process and documentation related to 2019 breaches of non-recorded phone lines. Whereas the department again failed to address the specifics of the board's requests, instead relying on general statements of commitment and insufficient information with no timeline or details or directing board members to a public New York City Department of Investigation report instead of providing the particular violations and complaints the department received regarding improperly recorded privileged phone calls. Whereas the board has repeatedly requested detailed plans or additional information on basic operational practices or improvements the department intends to undertake, and in return has consistently received vague assertions of future plans, or referred to external resources that lack fulsome explanations sought by the board, or provide a minimum amount of information devoid of specific details that would allow the board to meaningfully assess the department's effort of improving the operations and conditions of the city jails. Whereas the department failed to timely provide the board with vital materials related to deaths that occurred in custody in 2025, with some document production delayed more than 3 months, seriously impacting the board's ability to fulfill its mandate to investigate deaths in custody. Whereas this continued pattern of non-responsiveness undermines the board's ability to exercise effective oversight and ensure compliance with minimum standards, delays urgent investigations, obstructs the board's statutory duties, and raises serious concerns about transparency, accountability, and institutional integrity. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board formally condemns the department's ongoing failure to fully and promptly respond to the board's request for information and documentation regarding basic jail operations and matters that impact all who work and live in the city's jails, which represents a breach of the department's legal obligations and a fundamental obstruction of independent oversight. The board demands immediate and sustained correction action by the department, including the designation of a high-level liaison to ensure timely and complete responses to all board inquiries and information requests. The board demands that the department immediately provide all specific documentation and detailed plans requested by the board regarding access to recreation and OBCC and other topics highlighted in the board's September 19th, 2025 letter to the department as required by New York City Charter, subsection 626, parentheses C, parentheses 2. It is further resolved that a copy of this resolution be posted conspicuously on the board's website. I've now
Thank you, Vice
finished
Chair
reading the
Skip.
resolution.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Skipper. Now, so the way I see it, board members, we will take the vote for amendment to the agenda, which has been moved and seconded. And the agenda change would be result of the resolution presented by Vice Chair Skipper. And then we would have to take a vote on that or discussion prior. But what I would like to do, if this is successful in passing or failing, I would like to have the department respond because I think we should let them respond at that point. So, does everyone understand the resolution, the first resolution to amend the agenda? So, if there's no objection to moving forward, take a vote. All in favor to amending the agenda for today's meeting? Say
Aye.
yay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there is no opposition for the record to amending the agenda. So the agenda has been amended to address resolution that was presented by Vice Chair Skipper. Now I would like to have the department, if they like, to respond to the request for a motion to present this resolution.
Deputy Commissioner for Strategic Operations. I do think there's some glaring misconceptions about what you're referring to. I think there's a significant difference between not being responsive and us being responsive and you disagree with our response. I have been on several emails when we have been responsive to the BOC's request. Specific to today's agenda, touring and rounding is policy. There's nothing to present because there's no update to the policies. What he shared was matter of facts. I would encourage all board members in advance of these meetings, and you probably do, is to take a look at some of the policies in advance of these meetings. I'm sure you're familiar with the policies, ma'am, but that was a policy presentation. If there's no updates to the policy, what else do you want us to present? So I think what the chief presented is a very matter of fact, clear delineation and concise way of what the policies are when it comes to touring and rounding. That's us not being responsive. And I don't think that's a fair accusation to say that we are being unresponsive. We are responsive. But if you disagree with our response, then this is what the dialogue is for. There's a lot of requests that the board makes. Some of it is duplicative because you guys already have access to the information. So when we come to these meetings and you make it seem like we're not being productive or we're being unresponsive, I think it's misleading to the public. You have access to data, you have access to policies. If you need a more nuanced conversation, then we rely on your questions so we can answer it as a matter of fact and as clear as possible. But to accuse us of us being unresponsive, even if it's a delayed response, I think it's totally unfair and off base. And I think when those matters come, you can reach out to us directly. Several times we're engaging with Jamali, and sometimes when need be, I'm engaging with Jasmine. But to say that we're being obstructive or we're just not being responsive, particularly when you're asking us questions that are within reach, remember, you guys got unfettered access to our jails. It is misleading to say we are putting hurdles in front of that. You guys can come to the jails 24/7, take a look at records, ask questions. There's no one from the department preventing from you all from doing your independent legal right of having oversight. So I just want to make that statement for the record because it's disheartening to say we are being unresponsive when my staff is working tirelessly away from their families to prepare for these meetings and be responsive to the board's questions. And I'm not saying this from a personal lens, but we also have requests that if you guys want a more extensive meeting based off policies, because we know some board members might be new, we're happy to have those conversations offline. There is a lot of nuance to our work. So to think we're going to be able to say something, even in this form, in the New York Minute, is not correct. So I would always offer up additional meetings. We could do teams. I'll tour with you in the jails if it helps you do your jobs better. But to say we are misleading or being unresponsive is unequivocally false. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
Okay, thank you. At this time, as I indicated, Vice Chair Skip offered up a resolution and a motion. Well, a resolution which will need a motion and a second to proceed. So is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Can I second? Second. I can't second. Okay.
Okay. Any questions, discussion? Judge?
Yes, with due respect to Deputy Commissioner Boyd, the genesis particularly of this is not just the presentations that took place this afternoon, but actually more pointedly, the inquiries that the board provided in writing to DOC following our September meeting. They were very specific. They covered a number of different areas. There were subparts, but the responses that we received were generalized responses. They were not responsive. They did not provide us with any of the data that we were seeking. And in fact, in many instances, just referred us to your website. Now, if your website actually clarified these issues, there would be no need for us to make the inquiries. So with all due respect, there is a basis for this. I was actually appalled when I read the responses, and had a discussion to say, where are the responses as such? So I think there is a problem, and it's beyond just disagreement as to what is non-responsive. I mean, when we ask for specifics, we expect to receive specific responses, not generalized responses and referring us to, this is part of, your website, et cetera. We want the actual responses. And, I just think it's so deficient that we really have no alternative because much of this information is not within our general knowledge.
Any other questions, board members? Yes, I would just like to say that based on the resolution presented, um, this, if successful, will result and may result in a serious escalation of charter enforcement by this board upon the department. So it is a very serious resolution. So at this time, we'll go to a vote, and I'm going to go to a roll call vote on the resolution presented. But I'd like to state, is anyone on the board that does not understand the resolution as read by Vice Chair Skip, or would like it read or have any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to a roll call vote. And I'll start with Vice Chair Skipper,
Yes.
Board Member Felipe,
Yes.
Board Member Judge Corsier,
Yes.
Board Member Stossel,
Yes.
Board Member Pitts,
Sadly, I will have to say yes.
Board Member Toussaint.
I think the judge's rebuttal was cogent. I say yes.
Okay, and I would say yes, and that it is unanimous. That is the opinion of this board that the resolution stands and passes. So that being said, we'll move on to the next final item. But if the department would like one last response to this action, I would offer that to the department. Okay, hearing none, we'll go to CHS update. We will now hear updates from Correctional Health Services on the agenda items. And that would be CHS rounding procedures in MO and PACE units.
Thank you.
So,
And
yeah, I don't know if you have a presentation, but Jasmine can read each of the areas if you do not have them, where we're looking for a response on.
Okay, so I will read what the bullets are on the agenda. They are overview of CHS policy on clinical rounding, frequency and procedures in MO units and PACE units, differences, if any, in CHS rounding protocols between MO and PACE units, how CHS monitors compliance with rounding expectations, for example, documentation, audits, electronic systems, coordination with DOC regarding access and safety during rounds, challenges encountered in conducting clinical rounds, including any facility-specific barriers, impact of officer availability or security issues on CHS's ability to complete rounds, and any corrective measures or operational adjustments CHS has implemented or proposed.
great, thank you. So My name is Joseph Otanakar. I'm the chief of the mental health service, and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I hope to address all the points. If something was not addressed, please feel free at the end to ask for clarification, and I can try to provide that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about clinical rounding done by the mental health service, as well as services provided on our different levels of care, including PACE units. So as you know, the mental health service provides care at 3 distinct levels of mental health care. General population, which is equivalent to outpatient level of care, where patients are brought to us in the clinic. We see these patients at least once monthly for visits. A higher level of care than that is the mental observation level of care. These patients are not brought to us in the clinic to be seen. We see these patients in their housing areas directly, and we do, for these patients, a limited number of groups, as well as daily mental health rounds. The highest level of care that we see patients is on our PACE units, and our PACE units are really multidisciplinary units that offer robust clinical programming. We have nursing staff, clinical arts therapists, treatment aides, staff, clinicians, clinical supervisors, psychiatric providers who work together with patients to provide care on the units. We do mental health rounding daily. We do more robust array of clinical groups, so at least twice daily groups we try to do on our PACE units, as well as community meetings. So the PACE units really mirror, in some ways, an inpatient hospital unit in kind of the presence that we have and the structure that we try to meet. So just to give a little bit of perspective as to who is being seen where, about 3/4 currently, as of today, or 76% of the patients that we as the mental health service treat are housed in general population level of care. So that's the majority of patients. 18% as of today are housed in mental observation units, and that number has grown percentage-wise over the years. So we're seeing, I think, a sicker population overall within the service, represented by the numbers. And additionally, the highest level of care, PACE, has about 6% of the patients that we work with. So a fairly large number, around 300 patients. The units that we have, that we work on Rikers, there's a number of them. So mental observation units, there's a total of 16. These are at RMSC, GRVC, RNDC, OBCC. The PACE units, there's also a large number, 10. And these are at different facilities, including RMSC, GRVC, NIC, and RNDC. The PACE model is really meant to be collaborative and allow greater access to care and a broader array of therapeutic interventions for some of the sickest patients in DOC custody. Some of the design of this model is to have great collaboration with Department of Corrections, to have steady officers who really know the patients as well, and as our staff, and work together when there's problems or issues. And what we found is that on the PACE units, patients really do have better outcomes. They have increased medication compliance or adherence. They have reduced incidence of violence, and better outcomes overall in terms of a reduced need for rehospitalization. With regard to the question of mental health rounding, so mental health rounding is an essential part of what we do on our mental health therapeutic housing units, the MO units and the PACE units. These are conducted at least once a day, and these are really can be thought of as clinical check-ins. The primary purpose of these is to identify patients who have additional intervention needs, and to escalate as needed, and help us to ensure that patients on these units are frequently assessed. These are very different from custodial rounds in that they don't occur every 15 minutes or 30 minutes. They occur once a day, typically. Just procedurally, so when one of our staff members performs mental health rounding, what they will typically do is speak with a floor officer and any available clinical staff about particular patients of concern before beginning their rounding. And in their rounds, they briefly communicate with all patients on the unit. For patients within their cells, they visualize the cell conditions. They note any patients not on the unit at the time of rounding, and then they escalate within CHS any medical or mental health concerns that warrant further indication, in addition to notifying the Department of Corrections floor officers of any emergencies to activate an emergency response when needed. As far as monitoring, we have pretty clear procedures in terms of making sure that mental health rounds are performed consistently. The unit chiefs in each facility are responsible for organizing and monitoring, in addition to the clinical supervisors who review mental health rounds on a daily basis on all of the mental health therapeutic housing units. And clinical supervisors really are expected and do follow up on and escalate any issues that are identified to be of concern. Regarding the question of differences in mental health rounding between the MO units and the PACE units, there really is no substantive difference. Sometimes there are barriers, even on our therapeutic housing units, which I think really are designed and are successful in facilitating direct access to our patients. There still are incidents where we encounter real challenges with that. When we do encounter challenges with that, our staff really work to try to resolve and escalate with our DOC partners or with their supervisors. It really is, specific to the situation and the patient. But for instance, if one of our staff members is unable to access the unit and perform rounds due to maybe insufficient, number of officers, one officer on the unit, typically they will try to ask for an escort officer and work to really make sure that gets completed. Or if there's, sometimes on occasion there may be smoke on the unit and unsafe conditions to enter the unit, that would be a reason for one of our staff to not be able to complete mental health rounds. But we really do make mental health rounds a top priority. And when there are instances where one of our staff is not able to go on the unit, they typically do try again later in the day in hopes that some kind of facilitation can occur to make that happen. And I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any questions about specific patients. We're happy to discuss that with the board in a different forum.
I'm sorry.
Any board member? Vice Chair Skip?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to step out for a minute for, never mind. You said that, so am I right to assume that rounds on MO units occur at least once a day? Is that what you're saying? Even if they're somewhat scheduled for like the morning, if they can't do it in the morning, they will return back like in the afternoon?
Yeah, that's correct. And we really try to do them as early in the day as possible. Yep.
Okay. Why are rounds only on once a day?
I think a number of reasons. One is resources. We have limited resources. Ideally, it'd be great to have the resources to do rounds multiple times, but on our PACE unit specifically, rounds are a supplement to other programming that we do. So we don't really rely solely on that. We're also working to build up our support on the MO unit specifically in terms of staffing. So rounds are really meant to be kind of a snapshot or just a check-in to make sure that we're not missing anything that's really problematic. It's an extra security blanket. If that
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Otanakar, maybe it would be helpful if you could describe some of the other points of clinical contact that happen on the PACE units and the MO units, just to give us a sense of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Dr. Stossel. So we have clinical encounters that occur at least weekly on our PACE units, including seeing a mental health clinician our mental health clinicians see patients for treatment plan reviews as well as progress notes. Our psychiatric staff see patients at least every other week, often weekly if they're not clinically stable, or if they're making medication changes, or if they're concerned about the effects of medications, side effects and impacts. We have creative art therapists on our PACE unit that see patients on a daily basis and orchestrate therapeutic groups with the patients, and these are some really fantastic groups. We also have a very robust treatment aid staff. So this consists of our treatment aides as well as our treatment aid supervisors. Treatment aides are the eyes and ears of our service. They really engage the patients constantly throughout the unit, as well as help to facilitate groups, both including community meetings. And then nursing staff as well are present on our PACE units. So we really do have a lot of presence on our PACE units, and I think I take a lot of pride in the good work that we do with patients who are really in a time of need and really need help.
Any other questions? Jude, Board Member Jude?
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
Could you provide us with a sense of some of the more prevalent diagnoses encountered in a PACE unit?
Yeah. So our PACE units house patients who have serious mental illness. So a very large number of the patients on our PACE units have psychotic disorders, so schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder or bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder. Also, patients may have intellectual disabilities on PACE units. I think this captures the majority of folks who we work with on our PACE units.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions in this topic area? Okay, so we'll move on to the second line of question, which is a testimony and follow-up regarding CHS's ability to conduct regular programming in PACE units. And if you might, Jasmine, if you can read the bullet points so that
Yes.
CHS can respond accordingly.
Yes, the bullets are summary of concerns raised in prior testimony regarding program disruptions in PACE units, description of clinical and therapeutic programming CHS aims to deliver in PACE units, for example, group therapy, individual sessions, and psychoeducation. Frequency and scope of programming CHS intends to provide under standard conditions, specific impact of officer shortages on CHS programming operations, for example, canceled sessions, limited access, data, if available, on programming delivery rates compared to intended schedule, communication protocols between CHS and DOC when programming cannot be completed, potential contingency plans or staffing/resource solutions to ensure continuity of care, and recommendations or requests CHS may have for DOC or the board to support uninterrupted programming.
Yes, so thank you for these questions. And I'm going to defer to my colleague, Mr. Castellanos, as well for many of these questions. But generally speaking, I think I went over some of the programming on the PACE unit and kind of what our gold standard is for that. Similar to MO units, when there are safety concerns on PACE units, it can create barriers to providing the groups, the individual interventions to patient care. For instance, if there's smoke out on the unit, I would not expect, I think all of us would expect some measures be taken to not expose our staff directly to unknown smoke substances. And so our staff members work with the department staff to try to address that. When there are similarly officer shortages on the unit, that can create challenges for safely running therapeutic groups. And so there are escalation pathways that we have in place for our staff to contact mental health leadership as well as our operational leadership to try to request additional staffing. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? I know there was quite a bit of bullet points that were read.
I just have a follow-up. Can you speak directly to the last bullet point, which means recommendation, which reads, excuse me, recommendations or requests CHS might have for DOC or the board to support uninterrupted programming?
I mean, we've been working with our colleagues about just the importance of steady officers on the PACE units. I think that you know, is a vital component to the model of the PACE unit and will help to improve overall collaboration and the patient care experience. So that would be one recommendation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank is that a question, Vice Chair Skip?
No.
Okay. All right, so no other questions. Thank you, CHS, for your presentation. We'll now move on to public comments. We will now hear comments from the public. Jasmine will call the names of those who signed up to speak.
Our first commenter is Michael Klinger, followed by Mazabeth Ginger Lopez.
Was it something I said?
Feeling kind of lonely over there, huh?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Klinger. I'm a jail services attorney with Brooklyn Defender Services. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some comments today. It has been approximately 12 months since our office began to receive a steady stream of reports from OBCC. The department was conducting tactical search operations, or TSOs, on a weekly, apparently scheduled basis, and each search was followed by an extended period of mandatory lock-in that often lasted multiple days and sometimes nearly a week, sometimes a little bit more. The TSO in general begins with a strip search inside the cell, then a search of the cell by staff while the person who was just strip searched waits outside. Once the cell search is over, then the person is locked back into the cell so that staff can continue down the line. They remain locked in, they're often told, until the process is completed for the entire facility. At OBCC in September, we heard that there were a little bit over 1,500 people. So that's how many of those searches would have to be conducted if it's true that people would be held inside their cell until they were completed for the facility. It's our understanding that each one of those people would need to be searched this way before that lockout before anybody be permitted to lock out again. During the lock-in periods, people lose access to law library, the phones on the walls, sometimes showers, sometimes access to the clinic and medications, and any other programming, and they absolutely lose access to daily recreation. Regarding phone access, even people that have a tablet say they sometimes can't make any calls, including calls to counsel or calls to 311 to express concerns over conditions during the lock-in because the phone app on the tablet is frequently disabled during the lock-in. In other words, the department's own practice of conducting TSOs, ostensibly for safety and security reasons, has been one of, if not the main, impediments to access to required programs and services, including recreation. We recognize the department's obligation to make determinations related to safety and security, but we also know that the department in its own regulations, including a 2007 operations order mentioned by Vice Chair Skipper, and some directives on tactical search operations, requires staff to, quote, minimize disruption of regular facility operations, end quote. So we appreciate Vice Chair Skipper's inquiry about the specific steps the department takes to minimize any disruption. And I listened, I didn't hear any specific steps there. I'd like to share a few observations from people we represent about how this has been experienced by them from just the past few weeks, which is to say, after the changes that the department has announced they made today. One person in OBCC 5 North experienced TSOs on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday 2 weeks ago. That meant he locked in on Sunday night and he didn't come out until Thursday. During that time, he had no access to recreation, law library, wall phones, or any programming. That same week, another person in OBCC 3 North was locked in every day except Wednesday, also following TSOs. So he has no tablet. He was just locked in his cell for that entire time. We hope that the board and the department will examine any policies that may be reevaluated to minimize disruption at OBCC and increase access not only to basic services, but to the respect and dignity that we're all entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mazabeth Ginger Lopez, followed by Chaplain Dr. Victoria A. Phillips.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Ginger Lopez, and I'm a paralegal client advocate at the Legal Aid Society's Prisoners' Rights Project. I'm here today to highlight long-standing and critical concerns at OBCC, particularly the lack of access to recreation and the denial of other basic services that have contributed to the continued dysfunction at the facility. We wish to alert the board specifically to complaints from our clients that have had a profoundly negative impact on their well-being while housed at OBCC. Many clients report that due to chronic staffing shortages, they were subjected to continuous lock-ins and deprived of recreation, showers, medical treatment, and other essential services. As just two examples, from August 26th through September 2nd, individuals housed in 2 Southwest at OBCC reported being confined to their cells without access to recreation, medical treatment, and were only afforded 1 shower during that entire period. Some individuals reported no access to indoor or outdoor recreation for 36 consecutive days while housed at OBCC. Another deeply troubling report came from an individual who described a 9-day lock-in during September. During this time, people reportedly attempted to hang up. Fires were reportedly set in some units in desperate efforts to receive medical attention the DOC staff allegedly denied during the lockdown. Additionally, we have documented cases of individuals who were subjected to gang assaults, resulting in serious injuries, including fractures, and who were denied immediate and follow-up medical treatment. One individual reported experiencing suicidal ideations due to the conditions at OBCC, and his request for mental health treatment was also delayed. We are gravely concerned about the dysfunction at OBCC and the devastating impact it has had on the individuals held there. We urge the board to take immediate action. We ask the board to investigate these reports thoroughly and transparently. We ask the board to publicize its findings and to hold DOC accountable for the denial of basic services and the harm caused to those in custody. We thank the Board of Corrections for allowing us this time to share our clients' experiences and perspectives. The lack of recreation and other essential services at OBCC is not just a policy failure, it is a human rights crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Chaplain Dr. Victoria A. Phillips. And after Dr. V, we'll move on to our remote callers.
Something must have spilled. Peace and blessings, everyone. Yes. Y'all all looking good today. Okay, I'm Chaplain Dr. Victoria A. Phillips. Everyone knows me as Dr. V. And today I'm here representing the Beyond Rosie's campaign, Gels Action Coalition, and of course, Visionary Ministries. I just want to point out a few things to you all. First, I just want to say thank you for your most recent reports. The community definitely appreciates anytime you release data on our community members. And thank you today for actually pushing back and holding DOC accountable. There are many times that they come in this room and they do not answer. They give you fluff. And today I truly saw the entire board holding them accountable to that fluff and seeking real answers. And I just want to highlight that. I just want to say that the women in Rosie's are needing consistent access to their tablets. There's an issue going on ever since the men came into the building. I don't know what that is. Men come around and issues occur. But there are issues happening with access to tablets and access to consistent programming. I wish the board would follow up on that. I want to make, we've been talking about therapeutic beds in Bellevue since 2019. I know many of you probably weren't on the board back then, but I could definitely give you a history lesson and how long we've been discussing therapeutic beds. We would really, really like to see this up and rolling and opening up at full speed. And speaking of those units, 265 officers were mentioned today to cover the Bellevue therapeutic beds. So out of 3 tours, 7 days a week, why does it take 265 officers? Even if we consider the officers that are utilized for transportation, why does it take 265 officers to cover one hospital unit? Right? You're not even talking about the medical staff. We're talking about correction officers. And I raised that. I'm not a union leader for DOC, but I do take a lot of their calls and concerns from officers. And we still have officers on units with no B officer. We still have officers on units with a lack of follow-up for them to even get their meal time. So why are we talking about 265 officers at a hospital where there is security and where there is medical staff? Make DOC utilize their budget and their manpower in real time and really make it make sense. And lastly, I'll just say, we had someone recently die on a PACE unit, and I've always been a great advocate for PACE units. And so I don't want to take away from the great things that they are able to do, but highlight that. We had someone die in the most safest, best place to be in a medical concern in DOC. Follow up on that. There's a real reason that protocols won't follow. The minimum standard still wasn't reached. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker on? Okay, so we have Tamara Begel.
Hi, Tamara. You should be good to go now. I see you. You're good. Can you unmute yourself, Tamara? All right, great.
Hear me? Okay, wonderful. Sorry about that. Good morning. My name is Tamara Begal, and I am independent healthcare, mental health care, and justice advocate. I'm here today to fight for basic human rights at Rikers as a volunteer with the Beyond Rosies and the Justice for Women's Task Force. Today, I want to highlight the urgent need of women being held in custody and the systematic failures of the Department of Corrections. I do applaud the Board of Corrections for the for passing the board member Skip's announcement and motion. I think that that's a step in the right direction, and I appreciate that. The DOC is violating the rights and health of those being held apart and denying them basic medical and mental health care. This must end now, and the authority for health care decisions must lie solely with the correctional health service professionals, not with correction officers. Last month when I gave testimony, I asked several things. I'm just going to repeat them. I'd like to know more about how many instances of Stevens-Johnson syndrome occurred, and what the plan to ensure that this isn't ignored again. I asked about accountability of those who treated somebody, Ms. Jones, but of course you may not be able to comment on that. Immediate access, we insisted that doctors, psychiatrists be the only ones to make medical and mental health decisions. Correctional officers should never be allowed to withhold medical visits based on safety, behavioral, or any other non-medical reason. We weren't getting numbers on any of this or action plans to resolve this issue when we know that they have occurred. I'm disappointed that there wasn't better information provided by the DOC, and let's really look at those numbers in those instances, because we know they occur and they are being reported by not only advocates and individuals correction impacted by the carceral system, but also by lawyers. I also asked that the BOC provide, or the DOC, sorry, provide us with the number of individuals diagnosed or suspected of having developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, or significant cognitive impairment due to traumatic brain injury. And I also suggested that they add master's level board certified behavior analysts to every unit, every waking shift, and increase staffing so people respond to emergencies and behaviors. Behaviors we know are very often ways people are trying to communicate needs and extreme needs, and this could improve safety within the carceral system. I also am disappointed that we are still waiting on the DOC and BOC reports on the deaths of those in custody. It is October and we have no reports from 2025. I know that those are forthcoming, but they are late. I also asked for the report on sexual assaults within the jail and prison system, which is overdue. And that we make sure that we are responding with fidelity to any sexual assaults, including with proper mental health care follow-up. Additionally, in September, it was reported that lice treatment was withheld from individuals in Rosie's. I'm hoping that that was responded to and that individuals in Rosie's were able to have replaced the items needed such that they can control the lice epidemic and get the health treatments that they needed. The mold abatement issue seems to continue to be an issue. This is an important health issue that has lasting effects on the body and should be dealt with. Additionally, I recommend that we offer OMH peer certification inside the carceral system for individuals who are directly impacted. This will not only help support professionals, but also provide other supports necessary. The protection of staff, while important, does not erase our responsibility to ensure the health and safety of those who are being restricted by the carceral system. Medical professionals are the only ones qualified to make medical decisions. Mental health care is health care, and the authority of medical doctors, nurses, physician's assistants, psychiatrists, therapists, social workers, and anyone else CHS reported to see the patient should be absolute. Let's make this happen. Let's actually get the numbers available so that we can respond to the problems that are ongoing. We know that there isn't enough mental health covered in our system.
Excuse me. I don't see the time, but I think that you've been afforded past
Okay, thank
the
you. Sorry.
time allowance. Okay, thank you. Jamali, if you can, please let me know when there's time so that I can have a decision on to let proceed based on the flow of the conversation.
Noted.
Thank you.
That's the last public comment. There's no more public comments.
Okay, okay. Well, this brings our meeting to a closing, but I would like to thank the BOC staff for diligently working with a wonderful technical and video staff that allowed me to be sort of on the other side of the world and to be able to participate in a meeting that I cherish so much. So thank you for assisting me to be able to continue to be a part of the meeting. So now I'd like to say thank you to everyone who attended and participated in today's meeting. The board's next meeting is scheduled to take place on Thursday, November 13th, 2025 at 1 p.m. So at this time, I would like to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Is there, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Without hearing any objection, the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you so much, Chair Sampson. Great job today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the support you guys